I want all of you to get up out of your chairs. I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore.
I don't want to abolish government. I simply want to reduce it to the size where I can drag it into the bathroom and drown in the bathtub.
You bet I cut the taxes at the top.
How dare you? How dare you? Go ahead. Make my day.
The Rick Smith Show starts now.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. What a weekend it was. And again, the insanity, the stuff coming out of the White House just, it almost defies logic, to be honest. It is disgusting, it's disgraceful, but predictable. And what's interesting to me above all else is since Senator McCain's passing, the gymnastics on the far right to back up Trump and to try and somehow justify the insanity and the love and the compassion on the other side. And look, I was not a huge John McCain fan. I think on the healthcare vote, he got it right for whatever reason that was. But I never saw him as somebody that I viscerally despised. Policy-wise, major disagreements. But as an American, as a patriot, as a hero, never questioned. And it's interesting that, there are those who will question. But those are the same people, and I go back to 2004 when John Kerry was running. Those are the same people who will diminish and destroy anyone. Those are the people who are walking around with the Purple Heart Band-Aids. So McCain has passed on, and I thought his former chief of staff, Grant Woods, had the right line on this. He said, I think we should try to be positive. So I thought it was a really beautiful and perfect statement that Ivanka Trump made, because she did a really good job. That was really well done, he said. I will just say, not specifically, but generally, one of the things I've learned in life is you don't want to put a small man in a big job. It doesn't usually work out. And I think we're seeing this right in front of us, because we woke up this morning. The White House had the flag at full mast. A specific slap in the face. Yesterday it was at half mast. They ordered today it back to full mast. And again, slap in the face. Because Trump feels, well, I gotta imagine he feels a little chafe. Massive pressure today. The American Legion, veterans groups from all around the country, the sane, the rational, outrage. Eventually, they did raise or lower the flag back to half mast and issued a proclamation and a statement. 2 days late, but they issued a statement. And the statement, truthfully, was not from Trump's pen. It was a PR flack who's saying, "Hey, we got to cover your you know what." But I thought it was interesting that you look at both sides of the Republican Party, and I look at someone like James Inhofe, who I despise on a whole bunch of levels. The EPA and our environment and climate change and all that being front and foremost. Mr. I have a snowball, so there's no climate change. He told reporters today that Senator McCain was partially to blame. It was his fault. It was partially his fault. He said, quote, well, you know, frankly, I think that John McCain is partially to blame for that because he was very outspoken. He disagreed with the president in certain areas and wasn't too courteous about it. Really? I mean, really? A sitting U.S. senator said that hours, a day and a half, a day after the passing of a colleague. Now, they probably might not get along, because I've heard a lot of people didn't get along with McCain. But that's what they came up with. It's partially his fault. These are the same people who say, there's good people on both sides, with the Nazis down there in Charlottesville. Now, to his credit, Johnny Isaacson, again, not a big fan of him, a Republican from Georgia. He came out with what I thought was the right response. He said, anyone who tarnishes the reputation of John McCain deserves a whipping. I agree with that. He goes on to say, because most of the ones that would do the wrong thing by John McCain didn't have the guts to do the right thing when it was their turn. He said, I would say to the president or anyone in the world, it's time to pause and say this was a great man. He gave us everything. We owe him nothing less than the respect that he earned. And like I said, I may not have agreed with him on policy issues and on some of his votes, but you cannot take away the fact that he was a war hero. He was a patriot and loved this country. And if you look at his letter, his final letter, he laid that out. He said, look, I made some mistakes, but I loved my country and everything that it gave me. He said that he lived, 10 lifetimes of experiences, of adventures, of friendships, and all of that. And I sit and I think about where we are as a country. And this has been one of these things that's, even in death, we can't come to an agreement. This is one of those moments where, you have to stop and think about letting the politics go, letting my team go for a minute and saying that, his family is suffering right now. It could be any one of our families who lose a loved one. And even in his last hour, he's talking about how they bring us back together. And today I happened to see again, and I'd forgotten about his concession speech, which was really one of the most incredible concession speeches I've ever seen. In that he was setting up for Barack Obama, who I'm sure he saw the attacks that were going to come, the arrows that were going to be thrown his way, all of the chaos and the insanity that did happen over the 8 years President Obama was in office. And he tried to allay the fears of the people in that audience who were thinking it's the end of the world. This Muslim, this Kenyan, this Arab, this Manchurian candidate is taking over our country. And he tried to allay their fears. And there was a picture of Sarah Palin just horrified standing next to him, that I can't believe you're saying this. He's our mortal enemy. And even through that speech, he kept talking about moving the country forward. While we disagree on policy, it's about moving the country forward. And then there's that moment during the campaign that did him no good. He really could have. And I was thinking about this today as I was watching that segment, because it's been played a bunch of times. And I'm sure you've seen it, where the woman's, she's reaching for the words and she just blurts out, he's an Arab. And McCain takes the microphone from her and says, no. He's a good, decent family man. He's a proud American. None of that. He'll have none of that. And he did that a lot during the campaign. Defending your opponent. He could have done what Donald Trump did the entire 2015, well, from 2010 forward. He could have done in Birther and Kenyon, and he could have done all of that stuff. But he didn't. He rose above that. And for that, I think everyone gives him credit. Except for obviously the crazy base that now supports Trump. And I look at these moments because these are important moments as a country. I look at these moments and go, we can't even come together on this? Maybe wait until he's in the ground? Maybe? He went in his speech, he said, we weaken our greatness when we confuse our patriotism with tribal rivalries that have sown resentment and hatred and violence in all corners of the globe. We weaken it when we hide behind walls rather than tear them down, when we doubt the power of our ideals rather than trust them to be the great force for change they have always been. We are 325 million opinionated, vociferous individuals. We argue and compete and sometimes even vilify each other in our raucous public debates. But we have always had so much more in common with each other than in disagreement. He said, if only we remember that and give each other the benefit of the presumption that we all love our country, we will get through these challenging times. We will come through them stronger than before. We always do. I hope he's right. And I hope we take from that. I have never, in the years that I've been doing this program, ever said someone on the other side hates our country. I've said some of the things they do want to undermine and destroy something that we're doing. But I've never doubted someone's patriotism. I've never tried to demonize their love for this country. Maybe that's a place to start. Just a thought. I'd love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. Share your thoughts. Tell me what you think of this debacle and this just nonsense that's coming out of the White House, and if we can move beyond it. Love to hear that. I'm going to take a quick break. When we come back, Khary Penebaker is going to be here to share some thoughts on the shooting that happened again. Another shooting in Florida. Just maddening. We'll get some thoughts on that and discuss what we should be doing. Quick break. Right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show.
Own 90% of the wealth. 10% of the people. Own 90% of the wealth. Where do you fit in? Take a look at yourself. 10% of the people. Own 90% of the wealth.
Where smart policy and sound investment matters. The Rick Smith Show.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1950. At 4 p.m. on that day, the U.S. Army completed its takeover of the country's railroads. They were acting on the orders of President Harry S. Truman. Two unions, the Brotherhood of Railroad Trainmen and the Order of Railway Conductors, had threatened a national strike. In the years after World War II, a wave of strikes passed through almost every major industry in the United States. Labor unrest, bottled up by war production, overflowed as the war ended. In 1946 alone, there were more than 5,000 strikes across the nation. Then, in 1950, the United States entered the Korean War. President Truman was determined that railway transport would not be slowed by a strike. He used the war as a justification to seize control of the railroads. The federal government had similarly intervened with the railroads during World War I. Truman established an emergency board to help settle the railroad labor dispute. The unions refused the proposed settlement. The president